What is going on, ladies and gentlemen? Thank you for another Red and Gold Standard podcast preview edition. Zach could not make it tonight, so I am here with my man from Nothing But Niners, Mike Andrews. We are here to preview the 49ers Week 8 matchup against the Cincinnati Bengals. Mike, how you doing, man?
I'm doing really, really well. I think we should start the episode by letting people know why Zach couldn't be here. He told me very specifically that he did not want to pick the Bengals on air, so he was just going to let us go out there and do his dirty work. I'm absolutely kidding, guys. He did not say that. No, I'm doing really good, man. I've had a really fun, exciting Saturday. For the first time in a long time, it was a very freeing feeling. And I don't know, old friends. Good times, good laughs, and it was just a really, really good day, man. Good day with friends and family.
Awesome. Yeah, you talk about Zach not wanting to pick the Bengals on air. I am going to need everybody here to pick, though, because if you are watching us on Twitter, we cannot see your comments. So please, please, please like, smash, subscribe, go over to YouTube and comment there. The algorithm, whatever you need to do to get us up and working. We're close to 18 billion subscribers at this point, just a little bit further, and we're going to beat out the Golden Arches for the most people served. So we love having you guys here. Thank you so much for joining us. Let's jump right into it. Before we preview the game, there were a couple of news items this week. Most importantly, the seemingly whirlwind 72-hour Brock Purdy concussion thing. Apparently, after the game on Monday night against Minnesota, he exhibited some sort of concussion symptoms on the plane. They entered him into concussion protocol on Tuesday, but by Thursday afternoon, he was a limited participant. Friday, he was a full participant, and now he's completely off the injury report. Mike, what do you make of this? What do you think happened? What do you think going forward? Is there going to be, a potential for risk to Brock Purdy?
Yeah. So we pulled up the actual NFL protocol and what all of the exercises and phases, the 5 phases of NFL protocol are for concussions, and everything was to standard. There was no magic Houdini type stuff going on. The very first phase is literally just rest. And then from that moment on, if your rest is fine and they do the little cognitive test, if everything is okay, then they start doing limited stuff. 20 minutes here, 20 minutes there, monitoring symptoms and all that stuff. Then you progress to phase 2, a little bit more physical activity, non-contact nonetheless, but it's aerobics and things like that. We broke it all down. So being limited still is just limited. That just means you're outside of phase 1. Phase 1 is just rest. That is all phase 1 is, and everything after that, it's just different types of stretching and all that stuff, and then running, and then football activity without contact, and blah blah blah. So there were no miracle cures or anything like what people want to make it sound like. He didn't get Michael's secret stuff in the locker room or anything like that. He went through the regular NFL concussion protocol. If they discovered it Monday, he could have entered phase 1 as early as Monday evening, and that would have cleared him for Friday. He was actually cleared on Saturday, and I'll take it.
Yeah, I think, and it depends too, right? Not all concussions are created equal. My theory was that he might not have even had a full-blown concussion. He could have just been on the plane and somebody asked him how he was doing, one of the team doctors or whatever, and he could have just been like, I don't know, I kind of got like a headache or something, you know what I mean? And even something as simple as that could have thrown him into protocol. It's a little bit surprising that with all the replays that the NFL typically tends to have on these nationally televised games, that the independent neurological spotter didn't see that Brock Purdy got absolutely lit up on that sneak attempt and try to pull him. But, I don't want to make too much out of that.
Well, let me just piggyback on that with a little conspiracy theory type, vibe here. I think they did see it. And I think that they cannot pull Brock Purdy in that moment or after every single sneak like that, this tush push that they're calling it, after every single sneak like that, they're going to have to pull every starting quarterback. And the NFL does not and cannot afford for that to happen. So I don't think it was missed at all.
Okay.
I think that this was a very intentional commitment to the calls by the NFL. My personal theory.
And that's totally fair. Very well could be, because not every hit is going to be something, especially if he was able to pop right back up. And again, that was the second sneak, correct? Because the first sneak he got whipped down to the ground. I almost,
Mhm.
with the way his body turned, that he might have gotten face masked, but it could have been inside of his jersey too. But he just got yanked. Um, do you think that the concussion, as far as another conspiracy and what a lot of 49er fans want to believe, do you think that the potential concussion after that played a part in how Brock Purdy played in the last couple minutes of that game?
I do I think no. Am I arrogant enough to just completely dismiss it as a possibility? Absolutely not. It absolutely could have contributed to the 2 interceptions and all that, but I don't think that was the case. I don't think that was the case. Brock didn't look rattled. He didn't look thrown off or anything like that. To me, I'm also no expert, and I didn't talk to him in between snaps or reps or anything like that. So I couldn't easily identify any cognitive impairments. So I don't think that
Now,
was a factor. I think it,
do
it
you
was a little bit of a good.
do you think that it could have just been a situation like we saw the ball that he threw in anticipation to Jawan Jennings that was far, far off the mark, and then there were a couple other throws that were far off the mark. Do you think that since the NFL is such a game of inches, that even if he wasn't, wobbly or slurring words or unable to remember a play or this or that, that a part of that could have been a little bit from that head, just feeling a little off, right? Equilibrium, just like even a degree
Mhm.
off. Do you think that could play a part of it? And if so, and if we're not sure, do we kind of take a wait and see approach and kind of, look at that in a vacuum to kind of judge him on based on what he was doing? Do you want to see more play from him before we decide, okay, that's what we were going to, kind of critique him on with those 2 interceptions, or do we give him the caveat of he could have been concussed? Let's see what he does going forward.
Yeah, no, like I said, I'm not foolish enough to be like, there's no possible chance that he was actually concussed. That's just who he is, right? Like we didn't see that type of play from him typically. But I also am human enough to realize that, all good quarterbacks, great quarterbacks, elite quarterbacks have moments. But I do think it's a possibility that there was a chance, and I do think that we should wait and see how he reacts and responds. Once he's cleared, which means that you should expect him to return to whatever status you had him at previously, and then we can start judging from there. If he looks like the Brock Purdy that ended the game, and we know that he's medically been cleared, then that's just who the guy was. If all of a sudden he comes out and just lights it up, and he has another one of those, 26 for 27 games, and he's out there with 3 touchdowns and all that, it's like, oh well, maybe there was something to that concussion thing that they were talking about. We should guys, like, it's okay to reserve the right to change your mind about something. I don't think that the concussion caused anything. But if I see a change in play, okay, I was wrong. It's okay. It's okay.
Do you think that there was any potential quarterback controversy brewing? Because that was something that I saw making the rounds when it looked like Brock Purdy might
Oh,
not start. And there were a lot of the talking heads saying, hey, if Sam Darnold plays well, they might be able to bench Brock Purdy, or they might look to bench Brock Purdy, blah, blah, blah. What do you make of this? And
yeah.
why is it that we can't go an entire week without a 49ers quarterback controversy at this point? What is going on
You
here?
know,
They can't be getting that many clicks.
the truth of the matter is we went 5 or 6 weeks without any quarterback controversy here. And I think that, the 49ers football gods in particular said, oh crap, we forgot about this one. And they put the quarterback position back up on the board, right? We talked about the running back and dinged up Christian McCaffrey. We talked about the wide back in the absence of Deebo Samuel, and it's George Kittle MIA, and we had the Nick Bosa and the defensive line drama and all that. And it was like, wait a minute, we've gone too long without talking about the quarterbacks. Let's see what's really going on with this 49ers team, right? Let's get them back in the mix for their normal topic of discussion and concern. Um, I have my own little conspiracy theory here. The trade deadline is rapidly approaching. This will be the last game that the Niners play before the trade deadline, if I'm not mistaken. So I think that there was a little bit of a hiccup with Brock Purdy. Let's take advantage of it. Let's give Sam Darnold all the reps with the ones in practice. Let's put him out there on display for the rest of the league to see. And maybe we can warrant a nice trade partner for Sam Darnold, former number 3 overall pick, someone who could go to another team and help. The Niners have been tagged to the Washington Commanders for a couple of their defensive linemen. And if that's the case, they could definitely use Sam Darnold over a guy like Sam Howell, right? Sam Howell's over there, the most sacked quarterback in the entire NFL. And it's not even close. I think he's over 40. The next closest guy is Daniel Jones with like 28 or 22 or something like that. Like the number 8 is involved in there somewhere. So 26, maybe it's an 18 difference. I forget exactly what it is, but the number 8 is involved in there somewhere. Maybe Washington Commanders are saying, hey, you give us a quarterback and we'll send you Chase Young, or we'll send you Montez Sweat, or some and I thought the Niners had a really good opportunity to put Sam Darnold on display, one game, change everyone's mind, and let a desperate team come knocking on their door. I was all aboard that conspiracy theory.
So what do you think happened? They just decided, nah. Is it too much of Shanahan's love for Darnold? He was like, no, don't do this to me, John.
No, I think that it's still a possibility. Brock Purdy has been upgraded to questionable, right?
No. He was cleared. He's starting. He's not on the injury designation at all.
There you go.
Yeah.
He's completely cleared. But what we did see was a full week of rep ones going to Sam Darnold. If Brock Purdy goes in there and tweaks something, doesn't feel well, he could be pulled. One tackle where they show his head hit the ground really hard, he can come out early, and then Sam Darnold goes in there, and he was the guy practicing all week. He's got the reps. He's got everything ready. Now the conspiracy theorists have to take a step back and say, oh, well, Brock Purdy starting, I was wrong, until you're not wrong. So I reserve that right. I'm going to be right until I'm wrong. And if I see Brock Purdy go out there and play the whole game, then fine, so be it. I was wrong. But until then, I'm still holding out some hope that the Niners can drum up some trade bait for the backup quarterback here in Sam Darnold.
Sure. I mean, listen, I'm not going to say you're 100% wrong, but I think you're like 99% wrong. Let's be honest here.
So do I, by the way.
I don't think Sam Darnold has any real trade value, even if he came out and played well. That's one game. There's 55 other games of tape on him that they kind of know. And it's like, if Kyle Shanahan decides that he doesn't want you, that's a really damning kind of statement.
You don't think that a 42-7 victory by the 49ers could make some teams think, you know what, man, he was with a really, really bad Jets team. He was with a really bad Panthers team. And for the first 2 weeks with the Panthers, while being an unknown, he did look good. Now he's with the 49ers with a below average offensive line, but really good supporting cast. We have a similar supporting cast, or we have a better offensive line. Maybe he can be better here. Like, you don't think that there's a team that could just maybe feel just a little desperate and say, you know what, we could afford that kind of talent. We don't have that talent at the quarterback position.
I don't think so. And here's why I say that. Let's just use your example of the Washington Commanders. If the Washington Commanders are going to be trading away pieces like Montez Sweat or Chase Young or whoever they're going to be trading away, I don't think that they're that worried about getting a Sam Darnold this year, because you can try to sign him away when he becomes a free agent. What are they going to do in the draft? Do they make a move up for one of these quarterbacks coming out? Do they make a move up to try to get a Caleb Williams? If you can't get a Caleb Williams, do you settle on a Drake May? Do you go for somebody like a Michael Penix or a JJ McCarthy or somebody of that nature, right? Any team that's in a position to win now wouldn't need Sam Darnold. And any team that needs Sam Darnold isn't in the business of giving up a lot to get him when he's on a short contract and you're not really going to be doing anything with him, right? They're going to let it rock with the guys that they have. You think about teams like Carolina, Bryce Young quarterback. They already had Sam Darnold. They don't want him. Atlanta, you got to see what you have in Desmond Ridder. And if he's not the guy, then you need to go get a guy. Sam Darnold at this point is a backup / maybe bridge starter. I don't think that those teams, if they're really that bad and looking for a quarterback, are going to be in the market to move somebody. Even a team like Denver, they're stuck with Russell Wilson. That contract is prohibitive. It's guaranteed. They can't do anything with it. Are they going to sit $30-40 million on the bench every year to start Sam Darnold? Probably not. It looks like they're cleaning house, but that's one piece that's going to be really hard to move. And so I just don't see how there would be a lot of value for Sam Darnold. I think that the 49ers draft picks are much more valuable. Even something like a fourth round pick from the 49ers will carry more cachet than what Sam Darnold's going to give you, because if he doesn't play here and decides he wants to leave, he can be had for really cheap.
I respect it. I like it. I'm not going to argue against that at all. Very well broken down.
All right. So hopefully Brock Purdy plays well. We want him to play well. And no slight to Sam Darnold. Some people are just back and forth with it. It gets kind of gross. But I know you brought up the Commanders.
That was all slight to Sam Darnold. You just said that a fourth round pick was worth more. Like you can't say that and then be like, no disrespect though.
That's true. Well, I mean, listen, a fourth round pick is where the 49ers start doing a lot of damage. You know what I mean? And there's going to be guys the
49ers to another team is essentially a fifth round pick though. If we go where we think we're going this year.
I mean, that's fair. It's just look at the guys that the 49ers have found late or used fifth round picks to get value for, right? Even somebody like a Trent Williams was a third and a fifth. I mean, that's not a ton of compensation, right? I mean, look at Christian McCaffrey, a 2, 3, and a 4, and he has 24 touchdowns since getting traded to the 49ers, including 17 straight games. So there are picks that you can make that would be more valuable than what you're and this goes, it's not just the Sam Darnold thing, right? This is
right.
All backups across the league, right? Tyler Badgett for the Bears had a nice game the other day, but is he going to be worth like a fourth or fifth round pick that you can put at a position that's going to make an impact, like a linebacker or interior offensive line or something of that nature? We see fourth round running backs make impact all the time. Your backup quarterback typically is the cushiest job in the NFL. You don't have to do anything other than carry the clipboard. So that's kind of where I'm coming from, more so than anything else. We're talking about trades. Diana Rossini comes out with a report. John Lynch is on the phones. I don't know how accurate it is, but this could just be reading the tea leaves. And part of the reason, and I'll get to my own conspiracy about this, it's being reported that they're looking for more edge help and looking for help at cornerback. One, do you think that the 49ers are actively looking at the trade deadline? And two, is this just a situation where Diana Rossini really is just kind of reading the tea leaves, right? A lot of blame towards Steve Wilks for how the defense is going down, a lack of pass rush and soft coverage being the foremost at everyone's mind. But anybody who's in the know with the 49ers know that the biggest problem for this team is on the offensive line and protecting their quarterback. Do you think that this is just kind of going with the flow and trying to make a prediction more so than a report? How true do you think this is? And where do you think the 49ers should actually look for trade pieces going forward?
Yeah. So the first question was, do I think that the Niners are looking to make a move before the trade deadline? Yes, I do. I think this team is always looking to make a move of some sort. It's got to make sense, though. John Lynch has never been shy since being here. I know a lot of people think that, I wish we had a more aggressive GM. I don't think people know what an aggressive GM looks like. It literally doesn't get much more aggressive than John Lynch. We have had one draft in 6 years since they've been here where the Niners didn't make at least one trade in that draft. This guy moves up the draft board, down the draft board. This guy acquires free agents. This guy trades players. This guy trades away players, acquires players, and trade. Like, he does it all. So yes, they are always looking 100%. However, I think Diana Rossini, this will be her third time now, just throwing spaghetti at a wall and hoping that it sticks, so it's done. She had a rumor that came out very early. I don't know if it was quite before week one or if it was after week one. And John Lynch was asked very directly about her rumor from her sources, and he said, no, absolutely not. So she has been one of those people that just states the obvious, says per sources, and she just has gotten nothing right at all. This will be her third time. Now, the Niners could trade for a defensive lineman. They could trade for a corner, and I still don't think that it was because of anything that someone told her. I don't think she had any inside news. She's, like you said, looking at the tea leaves, stating the obvious. When the truth of the matter is, my personal opinion, the corners aren't playing bad. They're not perfect. They give up a play or two a game, right? But they're not playing bad. They're not being beat badly. They're usually in the right spots. And the defensive line isn't performing the way we want it to, but it's not because of lack of ability. It's because of a scheme change. So you can bring in whatever defensive lineman you want here. You can have a defensive line that has Von Miller, TJ Watt, Nick Bosa, and what's my guy's name? Myles Garrett. You can have all four of these guys on your defensive line at the same exact time, and if they're being told that you can't move left or right because someone is coming in that gap to blitz, then they're nullified and their abilities are completely nullified to control the man or men directly in front of them. That's the issue that the 49ers defensive line is having. That's why all these star players are looking like average at best, below average players when it comes to pursuing the quarterback. It's not because they all of a sudden forgot how to rush the passer. It's not because they all of a sudden became weak and are being manhandled by the guys in front of them. It's a different type of scheme, and they're being asked to control gaps or spots on the field. So it doesn't matter who comes in here to play. I don't think the Niners have to look for more defensive linemen. Personal opinion.
Listen, I've been on the 49ers don't need to sink a ton of assets into D-line for a couple of years now. I tend to agree with you. I think this is more of a, throw something against the wall and see what sticks. Again, I think it's the hot thing in town to go after Steve Wilks. It's a hot thing in town off of the last game to be reactionary and say, oh, man, the 49ers need more help on the defensive line or in the secondary. I don't necessarily disagree with getting more secondary help. I vehemently disagree with spending high-level assets to get D-line help, right? People are talking about Montez Sweat and Chase Young. Those are the names being floated out from the Washington Commanders. Those guys potentially commanding a second-round pick. To me, Montez Sweat in a contract year, Chase Young vastly underperforming what his draft stock was coming off of a very bad injury. That second-round pick is too valuable to give up. Right. There's a second round pick sitting on the 49ers that they're not even using in Drake Jackson. So
no, he was a third round pick.
Drake was
I get what you're saying.
Pick. Drake was a second round pick.
All right.
Drake Jackson was a second round pick.
Are we making a bet here?
Yes.
Okay. I'll get the Googling while you continue your point.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Oh, man, I hope I'm right. I feel so confident. Confident.
What are terms?
Oh, you were right. He was 61. God damn, I was 2 picks. Oh, stop it. All right, round fine. Pick. You were right. You got it. He was a second round pick.
Yeah. And so, you're looking at guys that you got a guy in the building, right, that you're not doing anything with that has second round cachet. If they wanted to move him and add a lower round pick, if somebody was willing to do that, but then, player swaps are very, very rare. I just don't know that you can keep pouring assets. They just traded for Randy Gregory. They essentially got Randy Gregory for free, right? And they keep rotating these guys in. Right. Javon Hargrave was an $80 million acquisition in the offseason on the defensive line. Eric Armstead, also one of the higher paid defensive tackles in the NFL. You just made Nick Bosa the highest paid defensive player. At some point or another, you got to call it good. You can't just keep pouring assets into it. You throw another second round pick in there. Sure, a Montez Sweat or a Chase Young could help the 49ers, but who knows what they're going to do with that second round pick? Who knows what that second round pick will become? And looking beyond this year, the 49ers are going to have a lot of holes to fill. There's no guarantee that Trent Williams is going to be back. We see the rest of that offensive line is in shambles. Outside of Aaron Banks, I mean, I'm not really convinced that any of them are long-term solutions. And so when you look at it that way, all you're doing is you're setting back. And we criticize, me in particular, in the 49ers not adding to the offensive line very heavily through the draft and waiting until the 5th, 6th, 7th undrafted free agent guys to come in. And we see what that's gotten us now with Colt McKivitz, who looks like a turnstile out there. I just don't know that you can essentially keep throwing all your assets into one area, right? The old saying, don't put all of your eggs in one basket. And the 49ers would be doing that with their draft capital yet again into the defensive line. Corner, everybody says Patrick Surtain. I think Jalen Johnson from the Bears could be had for a lower price. That would give the 49ers a little more versatility. I could see something like that. I'd love for them to trade for offensive line, but those trades are definitely very rare in the NFL in terms of offensive line because of the nature of that. It, as opposed to defensive line, the offensive line is more of a cohesive unit. You try to keep those guys together for the entire season because putting a new part in can be kind of difficult mid-season. But I just don't think that it's very accurate to just assume that the 49ers want more edge help, I don't know. Yeah. That could just be me though.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I agree. I agree. I don't think they're looking for more. And by the way, you want to talk about John Lynch's his impact on this team and all. John Lynch, I have never heard him give a speech during his Hall of Fame speech and any of that. I've never heard him talk publicly about his career without crediting the defensive line ahead of him. He said that those guys made his job so much easier. That's the imprint. That's why the Niners go defensive linemen so early. That's why they trade for defensive linemen so often. That's why they acquire these guys time in again over and over and over. That's truly what they believe in. And so that's John Lynch's imprint on this team. People say that, what does he do? He's just a figurehead and all that stuff. I think that's John Lynch and his motto. It starts up front for the defensive line. As far as the offensive lineman, I think he leans more, or as far as offensive players, I think he leans more on the scouts and Kyle's opinion and things like that. But that's where John Lynch makes his bread and butter.
So if you were to target somebody for the 49ers, who do you think you would try to target? Where do you think is the biggest area of need for the team?
Honestly, man, I guess right tackle by kind of default. I'm just not sure. We don't need wide receivers. We don't need like other tight ends. I think we have capable skill position players on the offensive side of the ball. Like I said, we could improve on corner maybe, but the game is the game. You know what I mean? I think these guys, I hate to harp on the defense, but I think these guys are just in tough positions time and time again, one-on-one on islands against good players. And when you're one-on-one against good wide receivers, it's kind of like the NBA, right? Like Jordan's going to get more calls than, other players in the NBA. You know what I mean? Like, so when you're D'ing up Kevin Durant or LeBron James, they're more likely to get some calls that other players just won't get for those same reasons. And that's why you see ticky-tack calls called on our corners, especially when they're left on islands with all the blitzes and stuff that the Niners are doing this season. So I think that no matter who we bring in, those kind of calls are going to remain there. Like I said, I haven't seen these corners dramatically out of place or just getting burned. The one big touchdown that you can remember in the last, just this whole season, was when Diamondou Lenore fell down. If he didn't fall down, these guys are right there. So I'm not looking for more help anywhere, really. The linebackers are good. The safeties are okay. Maybe a safety, if you want to be completely honest with you. Go out there and get an up-and-coming safety that can be the replacement for Gibson. You know what I mean? Like maybe that's where they should be looking. They trust in Talanoa Hufanga, a Pro Bowler, All Pro. I'm sorry, like an All Pro guy. Like so, then maybe it's Gibson. I wouldn't be mad at a corner, but somewhere in the secondary, maybe a nickel corner, maybe. You know what I mean? Like that would be where, if we're going to invest somewhere, if it's not right tackle, it would be somewhere in that secondary.
Yeah, I tend to agree with that. Again, good offensive linemen are rarely made available. We'd have to look at a team that was looking to offload some type. I mean, Dalton Risner from the Denver Broncos, somebody on that type of thing. I like Brian O'Neill from the Minnesota Vikings, but with that victory of the 49ers, I doubt they're going to be sellers at this point. It's got to be somebody who's going to command a higher salary going forward, that the team, maybe he's in his late 20s, the team wants to move in a different direction, and then maybe they can go with that. A lot of people, including, people in our fan base, people in the chat right now, are just kind of tired of the 49ers not winning at all, right? It's frustrating. We all hate it.
What does that mean?
I know, right? I feel a certain way about it, but I want to ask you, is it worth going the LA Rams method and selling off the future of the team in terms of draft picks to make an all-in play for Super Bowl this season?
Is it worth it? I don't know how to answer that question. I would be the happiest person in the world if we won a Super Bowl. But what I don't want to do, it's hard, right? It's really hard. This season, I want a Super Bowl. Every season, I want a Super Bowl. But if it means that there's just no hope later, then it's kind of a catch-22. It's damned if you do, damned if you don't. I wouldn't be mad either way, if I'm being completely honest with you. I think that if we just completely fall apart here down the stretch, then it's going to be like, damn, we should have went harder before the trade deadline, right? Like it's you kind of have to see it play out. And I'm not one of those type of people. I like to try to, have my opinion and stand on it until I'm wrong, like I said earlier. But if we don't, I think the answers are already in the building. Most of the answers are all in the building. So I'm not super concerned. The offensive line hasn't really been that much of a liability. It's it comes down to scheme on both sides of the ball. Kyle is good enough to use a guy like Brunskill to neutralize a guy like Aaron Donald. I mean, what more do you want? That tells me it's all about scheme. So no matter who we're playing up against, I think our offensive line will be serviceable. That's
I
just
think
how
it's
I
hard.
feel.
Yeah, I've always been of the opinion, everybody who knows me knows, I'm more of the take it the Pittsburgh Steelers or New England Patriots route where it's sustainable over the course of long-term, over the course of his career, right? I'd rather be 10, 11, 12 wins each season, have a shot at going, right? Because the playoffs, a lot of times it's almost as much about luck as it is about your talent on your team, right? Who gets the key injury, who's healthy, who gets the unlucky fumble, who gets the tuck rule. It's just one of those things that you got to make it to the dance before you show off your moves. And I think it's more important that the 49ers are there every year, right? No shade, because I love Jim Everett the Great coming in here every week talking his ish, but his team is 3-4, right? The Rams set the record for worst record coming off of a Super Bowl win in NFL history. They were the worst team. I think that you get to hang your hat on a championship, but really past the one season that you win the championship, does anybody really give a shit after the next guy wins, right? We're talking about 2 years ago. We're talking about Kansas City as the defending Super Bowl champ. Does anybody even remember where the Rams Super Bowl was played? Does anybody remember the final score? Half the people couldn't even tell you who they played.
I will say this though, and all of what you said is correct, but I am so tired of you have to watch your last Super Bowl on VHS. Like I'm just tired of it. I do want the Niners to go out and get one though.
There is a difference between 30 years and 2 years. I will grant you that. But at the same time, I would much rather we lived through the late 90s, early 2000s, mid 2000s 49ers, right? Where it's just injuries. And, Steve Young gets retired in 1999 with the concussion. You see Jerry Rice leave and go to the Raiders. You see Terrell Owens decide, no, I'm out of here too, right? Team drafts Tim Rattay. They switch uniforms, and those uniforms, even though they look cool, are associated with losing. You waste careers. You go through coaches like Mike Nolan, Mike Singletary, Jim Tom Sula, Chip Kelly. You go through all those guys, right? And those are the dark years. But then you get brief periods with the Jim Harbaugh era, and now more recently the Kyle Shanahan era, where they're in the mix every year, and we get to be hypercritical about the team because they win a lot. And I'd much rather have that than sell it all for a short, it's sacrificing your long-term health for short-term gain. And I think that's a little short-sighted. That's just my opinion though.
Mm-hmm.
All right, real quick, I want to get to the super chat from Gray Fox 198. He asks, is Trent Williams playing? He's questionable on the injury report. I don't think he's going to play. Mike, do you think he's going to play?
No. I think that if I'm the Niners, I have him available if needed. But I wouldn't put him out there. Let him go ahead and rest up that ankle. It's an ankle, right? If I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, it's a sprained ankle.
Yeah. Let him rest it up. Let him go out, get into the bye week, and come back 100%. I mean, if I was personally, I don't know what the grades were on PFF and all that stuff. I was personally happy with what we saw from Moore last week. I think he'd be fine another week. The Bengals, they have this guy Hubbard, who could pose a threat. He seems to be really good when the pressure's on. He just has another gear in that moment. He might not always get a sack. I know the Seahawks were driving against them in the fourth quarter, and he came up with a really, really big sack for them. But other than that, like I'm not really concerned with anyone on their defensive line. So I think we'll be okay.
Yeah, I don't know what his run blocking grade was, but I do know that Jalen Moore, according to PFF, only gave up one pressure. The running thing to me is a little bit more concerning. It's 2 weeks in a row that Christian McCaffrey wasn't really able to get going. 1 week, obviously, the Browns injury, but just kind of ineffective against Minnesota. I guess we'll see, because Somebody asked earlier in the chat, but do you think, like, if Trent Williams retires, we are looking at Jalen Moore? I mean, I feel like they would have to draft somebody. The real problem to me is Colt McKivitz on that right side.
Right.
He's been bad. He's been bad. And unfortunately, with a lot of the way that schemes defensively are run, and I'm surprised they don't do it more with Nick Bosa. We've seen it a little bit, but the way that they switch sides with their marquee pass rusher to attack a defense or an offense's weakness, I think that bodes very poorly for him going forward in terms of McKivitz being able to block. And again, we see it with, Brock Purdy with a concussion and potentially another 49ers quarterback missing games due to injury. I think this is something that is going to come back and bite the 49ers long term if they don't really start to address this now. You might be able to use Brock Purdy, his escapability, his awareness, or whatever to kind of mitigate some of what Colt McKivitz is doing. But even then, we see that the pockets are collapsing pretty quick on him, and he has to get outside and try to make things happen. I would just like to see them, do something to address that. So I don't think that selling the farm for that is going to be smart, right? You want to keep that going, but for one more week against a team in the Cincinnati Bengals, not the best pass rush in the world, not the best, in terms of numbers. I think they can get away with one more week of Trent Williams on the side.
Right. Yeah, I'm with you.
Somebody asked, I think it was Mark Cisneros, asked, why has Wilks not played Jair Brown? We drafted him in the 3rd round. Hufanga played a lot as a rookie. What do you think is going on? Because I've been puzzled by this too. I've barely even seen him on special teams, I don't believe. Like, he's barely out there. What do you think is happening? Because he was pretty highly touted and well thought of coming out of Penn State.
Personally, I think it's about picking up on the assignments and knowing your keys. Jair Brown, as much as people like him, speed is one of the things that he lacks. I don't know how much slower he could possibly be than Gibson or even Hufanga, right? Like none of those guys are burners or anything like that, right? But it's just a matter of the same thing that we saw with Hufanga when he first got here, right? It's like let him learn it for a season. I don't think there's much of a rush to get him out there. Gibson is playing serviceable when he plays, according to the keys in the defense. If they put him out there, then cool, but I just don't feel the need to rush him out there. He's not going to bring any different dynamic. It's not like he's a turnover guy, right? Like, the truth of the matter is Gibson is the guy that will get the turnovers in the secondary. So I would stick with using him. He's going to be the guy that if there's an errant throw, he's going to take advantage of it and capitalize on it. There's just no need to rush Jair Brown out there. And by the way, you guys know I go hard for my Jersey guys. He's from the city that I grew up in Trenton. So I am all about Jair Brown getting out there. And when he gets his time to shine, I do believe that we'll be happy about it. But he's got to go out there and be ready. And I'm not mad at the Niners for not rushing him to get out there.
Speaking of the defense, let's stay here. 49ers throwback says Steve Wilks knows he has to do better. He knows he has a lot of pressure after Kyle Shanahan talked to him. He knows what the players have said in the presser. I feel like he was really put on blast this week, and that was evident throughout the week. He was asked a bunch of questions. He seemed to take personal responsibility for that, but I don't remember 49ers players kind of going at a coach, and even Kyle Shanahan as the head coach. How short do you think this leash is for Steve Wilks?
I don't think it's short. All right, so this is going to get into a little bit of the preview. I don't think he's got a short leash. He's going to be here for the whole season, just so you guys know. They're not going to get rid of the defensive coordinator now and let it turn up to be something else. But the defense will be improved this week. I don't know if you want me to get into why I say that. The defensive line will be more productive.
We'll touch on it in the preview. We'll touch on the preview very shortly.
Yeah, but as far as how short of a leash, I don't think it's short at all. I think Wilks is going to be fine. This game in particular, going into the bye week, I think what will happen is they're going to evaluate what the Niners did well this week, and they will implement more of that going forward. And that's all I'm going to give you guys for now until we get into really previewing this game. I think that Wilks is going to rebound really, really well. People are going to blame it on the talk from Kyle Shanahan, the players saying what they had to say, but Wilks is going to be forced to do some things this week that he hasn't done for most of the season, and I can't wait to break it down.
Sin, thank you for joining us. I know it's late where you're at. She says, I think they're throwing him under the bus. I mean, I think it's pretty obvious they're throwing him under the bus, but who do you think is the mastermind behind this? Who do you think is kind of like making him that fall guy? If you had to guess.
I mean, he was hired to be the fall guy. I know that sounds crazy, right? And I've said it over and over on this show. I've said it on Nothing But Niners. I've said it on Wayne's show. A defensive coordinator hired and didn't bring anybody with him. You don't see it happen often in the NFL. I know someone last week said, "Oh no, that's not true," because Schwartz went over. Schwartz brought one guy with him. Wilks brought no one with him, not a single person. And I don't think that he has complete control over the defense. I don't. I really, really don't. So I think he was brought in to be a fall guy if the defense took a step back. I also think that Niner fans' expectations of the defense remaining a top 3 defense like they were the last 4 seasons is unreal. The expectations are unrealistic. If your defense is that good, teams do nothing but try to figure out how to stop it. It's just a matter of time before we fall back to top 10, which is where we are, which isn't terrible, by the way. And if your worst game is giving up 22 points to a team, I mean, keep it rocking. It's not the end of the world.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you. He's an easy fall guy, is my opinion. I just think, and I mean, we're all putting conspiracy hats on today. You had one earlier. I'm going to put one on now. I think that the hire of Steve Wilks was a little weird at the time. I don't think that he was necessarily a fit personality-wise for what the 49ers have traditionally been on business. I just wonder if this is the one thing, right? After such a disappointing loss in Philadelphia last year, such frustration, such high expectations, and with the emergence of Brock Purdy, I think for a lot of us, the writing was on the wall for a quarterback like Trey Lance very early. This, to me, seems to be maybe a move where Jed York kind of pressed the issue to me, where he was like, look, I left you guys to your own devices. You traded away the farm for a quarterback you don't even want anymore. I think I'm going to handle the hiring here.
Right.
And it makes him an easy scapegoat for the guys that have been there, right? Because no, this wasn't a John hire. Oh, this wasn't a Kyle hire. This was Jed, you know? We don't have any loyalty to you. You're the boss's, you're the boss's pick. You're the boss's handpicked choice. That can kind of, and especially coming off of the expectations that the 49ers have, obviously with the fan base being what it is. I do think that there could be something to that. Obviously, I have no evidence for that, and it's just me kind of playing the scenario off in my head. But I don't know, man. It just seems to me like this came a little bit too quickly. And I never got the impression that the players were very impressed with what Steve Wilks brought to the table anyway. So it's going to be interesting to see going forward, because I could see if they have another disaster, I could see as soon as if the Bengals get off tomorrow, if the Bengals score 30 plus, I wouldn't be surprised if they let Steve Wilks go during the bye week.
I think Steve Wilks was brought in to improve the play of the secondary. I think that's his specialty. And I don't know how to say it more than I've said it already. I think the secondary play has improved. I think these guys play one-on-one better. I think these guys are reading their cues right as far as the guys in the secondary. And other than a boneheaded play call here or there, the secondary has been fine. So I think he's done what they've asked him to do so far, and I think they're going to continue to let him do his job.
That's fair. I mean, I can totally see that. So before we get to the preview, is there any other news-related items, random topics, or anything else that you'd like to discuss before we dive into the Bengals game?
We went over basically the injured players. I don't expect to see Trent Williams playing this week.
No.
I wouldn't rush him back. We know Debo is out already.
Yep.
I don't know how much of other running backs we're going to see other than Christian McCaffrey. I know people are talking about him being overused, and we want to see more Mason. We're tired of seeing Elijah Mitchell and all that. But the truth of the matter is, you got the highest paid running back in the NFL. Use him. I am all in. If he's healthy, let the dude play. That's honestly the way I feel at this point. So yeah. I'm not worried about the usage of the backups. I mean, if we're talking 5 snaps a game, who gives a shit if it's Mitchell or if it's Mason? Honestly, like I don't even know the last time one of those guys got 5 carries in the game. So
Do you think that
McCaffrey's team.
Do you think that Mitchell could be on the move at the trade deadline?
I would say yes I would say yes from a disposable standpoint, like the Niners don't need him. I would say no because of a value point. I don't think anyone in the NFL is saying, "Oh, we got to get that guy on our team." He looks significantly worse than he's looked since he's been here. But again, he hasn't had a chance to really warm up either. It's 2 or 3 carries a game tops, and you don't see him anymore. Who's trading for someone who's getting that low of usage? It's just not going to happen. So there's no value in trading for him.
Okay.
Running backs are already a diminished position in the NFL. Like very, very. We got Christian McCaffrey, guys, and it didn't take a first.
Sure.
Like, think about
that. I guess the question is, let's say the 49ers did want to go after a Montez Sweat or something like that. Maybe that's a bad, they have Brian Robinson and other people. Let's just say they went after a team that was going to trade a pass rusher or whatever the case may be. Do you think that Mitchell could be the difference between having to give up like a third or a second, right? Could he be just like that little extra that allowed the 49ers to keep the higher pick?
No. I don't think the value exists. No. So I'm sorry. I know that's not the answer that people want to hear.
I think this lady has the wrong channel. I don't know what you're watching, my friend, but I don't know if she's watching 2 things at once or what, but thank you. I'm glad you're a good friend to Paula.
You ever seen Sister Act?
No.
Oh man. Well, I'm going to say it anyway. Alma.
Yes.
Check your batteries.
Oh, yes. That's right. I have seen Sister Act. That's Whoopi Goldberg as the nun, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I've seen that.
The pianist, her name, the old lady, her name was Alma. She had a hearing aid, and she's like, "All right, I want this song and this note." And Alma's just sitting there smiling, waiting. She's like, "Alma," she stomps her feet. "Check your batteries."
That's funny. Let's get into the preview for the 49ers and the Bengals. The 49ers obviously coming off of 2 losses in a row, 2 tough road games. They get to come back home to Levi's Stadium in the friendly confines of Santa Clara. It's a typical 49ers kickoff. It's an afternoon game for them. The Bengals are a team that, while struggling initially, including a very, very mediocre Joe Burrow very early, kind of a bad Joe Burrow actually, have kind of heated up as of late, albeit against not the best competition, I would say. The 49ers looking to avoid 3 in a row. Mike, whenever you're ready, what do you think is the keys to victory for the 49ers? What do they need to do to ensure they don't go into this bye week on a 3-game losing streak? And how important is it to go into the bye week with a win?
Extremely important. Extremely important. It's really a matter of confidence versus just not buying in anymore. It's that. And I think that the Niners, the defense has to get back to their typical ways, cut down on the missed tackles. The offense has to go back out there and start producing. It doesn't have to be a 30-point game, but it should be a 20-plus point game for sure. Get out of that 17. That number is haunting us right now. Get away from that 17, get back into the 20s, mid-20s, upper 20s, or higher, and the defense has to really go out there and show their natural dominance. And I think that both of these are very, very capable of attaining and achieving this week.
No, I agree with that. I do think that this could be a potential bounce back for the 49ers. I don't necessarily disagree with you about Steve Wilks' defense either. I think that everything is pointing to the 49ers being very, very dialed in on the defensive side of the ball. It's just going to depend on what they can get out of Brock Purdy. Once again, probably without Trent Williams, definitely without Debo. How do you get those other pieces moving? Obviously, we talked last week about Brandon Ayuk only really getting targeted in the first half and then essentially disappearing in the second half, whether that was by scheme, whether he was being taken away or bracketed in coverage, whatever have you. The 49ers have to come out and be able to use the available weapons to them to be able to, counteract the Bengals defense. It's going to be an interesting game. And preseason, we tabbed this game as maybe the game of the year for the 49ers in terms of difficulty, in terms of marquee matchup. even more so than the Cowboys, I thought, because this was something where the 49ers have owned the Cowboys the last couple of years. So there was a little luster taken off. And obviously, as we saw, that bore true, and the 49ers absolutely mollywopped them. We looked at this game ahead of time as Joe Burrow is the second coming of Joe Cool or whatever. He had just gotten paid. He had been to a Super Bowl already. He was a lot of people's picks, including my own, before the preseason. If you could pick a perfect quarterback to play Kyle Shanahan's system, who would it be? I would have said Joe Burrow, just because he fits a lot of the things that Shanahan likes to do. Calf injury derailed him a little bit, and they struggled early on, but this is no paper tiger. This is somebody the 49ers have to worry about. And I think that unlike the Cleveland Browns and the Minnesota Vikings, the 49ers would be more amped up for this opponent. If they're able to do that and focus, I see no reason why they shouldn't be able to win. Defensively, what are you looking for? Because this is a 49ers team that has traditionally given up a lot of yards to marquee wide receivers. Amari Cooper gets off. Jordan Addison, who's not even a marquee wide receiver, got off on the 49ers, right? Even earlier in the season, I think the only top receiver that they've really been able to box in is CeeDee Lamb. And that's just because Dak Prescott was terrible that game. They have Jamar Chase, obviously one of the maybe top 5 wide receivers in the NFL, and then a really good running mate in T. Higgins. They have a nice tight end. They have a good running back. This is a team with weapons. What can the 49ers do to slow them down? And in particular, the wide receivers.
Yeah. And you didn't even mention Tyler Boyd, right? Like, they have 3 really good wide receivers on this team. So this is good. This is what I couldn't wait to talk about. We were talking about, the blitz packages and how that kind of stalls the defensive linemen, the 4 down linemen and all that. The Niners literally can't do that this week. The Bengals have 3 really good weapons at the wide receiver position. They have a good back that can catch the ball out of the backfield and mix in if they want to use him. And so I think the blitzing and all that stuff comes to a cease in this game. I think that the Niners are going to be forced to go out there, put some extra DBs in the backfield and really just rush 4. They're going to get home with the down linemen. And this is the kind of game that the Niner fans have been waiting to see. You guys have been wanting to see this high-priced, high-drafted defensive line come in here and get off. You guys have been wanting to see Chris Kocurek show the dominant defensive line coach that he is. This is the week that we see it, because you can't go out there and blitz and leave too many of those good wide receivers one-on-one. You are playing with fire if you do that. Joe Burrow is the type of quarterback that will take advantage of it when he sees it. And so you can't go out there and risk it all like that. I think this is the week we get back to the basics, right? Forget all the blitzing. You might see the Niners blitz 3 times this entire game. I watched this Bengals team go up against the Seattle Seahawks. And let me tell you guys something. Outside of the first 3 drives, against the Bengals, they stopped blitzing and they did nothing. The Bengals finished that game with 17 points. They got the win, but they had 14 of those points in the first quarter and a half. That means essentially 3 quarters, they got 3 points. Once they stopped blitzing, it slowed things down. It slowed the ability to pass the ball. They let the 4 down linemen in Seattle just go out there and make Joe Burrow uncomfortable. They put so many people in that secondary that there were no easy throws anymore. You saw picks, you saw sacks, you saw turnovers just happening when you go out there and let the secondary be the secondary. When you let the defensive lineman be the defensive lineman, you muddle up that secondary, and all of a sudden they have to hesitate a little bit more. It allows the defensive lineman to get home. I think we start seeing that complementary football where we see some coverage sacks, where we see them panic a little bit, and maybe we get some just real sacks by the defensive linemen. These guys are going to go out there and get off. They're going to be able to feel out. This is one of those games where the defensive line will get better the longer the game goes on, because they're going to go out there and work these one-on-ones, these one-on-twos, right? everyone's not going to have a one-on-one. It's 4 versus 5, right? But they're going to work these one-on-ones, these one-on-twos. We're going to see some stunts from the defensive line finally, and these guys are going to say, hey, I'm feeling this. This guy can't stop me. Hey, I'm feeling this. I got this guy one-on-one. Hey, this stunt is working. Let's keep it going. Let's put Bosa on this side with this guy. This is when you're going to start to see the manipulation of the offensive line, or the opposing team's offensive line, really be put to a halt, right? When you move Nick Bosa around, they don't take the left tackle and say, oh, Bosa's on that side, we got to put him over there now. It's going to be a pure matchup nightmare for the Bengals. I think this is the week that we see it come to fruition. We're going to find hella success. I think the Niners defensive line goes out there and they get more pressures than they've had all season long in one game. I can't promise you guys sack numbers because Joe Burrow is good enough to get rid of the ball when he needs to, but we're going to see those pressures pile up, and they're going to be real pressures, not these, oh, the guy had the ball for 5 seconds and a defensive lineman made him move off his mark, and that counts as a pressure. It's not going to be that kind of thing at all. This defense is going to really, really come out and show their numbers, and it's going to be so good that Wilks' eyes are going to be open into the bye week and say, hey, maybe we should be doing this more often, and I should reel in the blitzes. So when I was saying that Wilks is going to have no choice but to see how the defense can actually play, this is how it happens. And I'm really, really excited about it. Like, this is the week that we just shake it all off. Scheme is going to be identified by what they're forced to do. When they come out in those 3 wide receiver sets, you're not blitzing. You're not going to blitz a ton. And the Bengals are going to come out in those 3 wide receiver sets because those are their best players. I'm really excited about it, guys. And I think you guys are going to be happy with what you see.
I can't disagree with that. I do wonder if the fact that they do have those 3 really good wide receivers is going to prove to be. I mean, I still feel like somebody's going to have themselves a day, right? I think that there's not enough depth on the 49ers corner position. I just don't know how much I trust an Isaiah Oliver to really kind of clean up. I do think that this is a game that's critical for the pass rush to get home, right? If they're running 4-man pressure and that's what they're doing, they have to get home. They have to make Joe Burrow uncomfortable. He's shown that if you get him off his mark and really pressure him, he will sometimes make mistakes. I think that that's where the 49ers really have to focus on, because if it's just straight up and the defensive line isn't getting home, I would give the advantage to the Bengals wide receivers in terms of pure man-on-man, one-on-one, receiver versus coverage. I just think that the talent is a little bit more on the Bengals side. When you take into account also the fact that, they have a good tight end, the fact that they have a good running back in Joe Mixon. So I think that there's a lot going on that is going to be important for the 49ers to focus on defensively, not just the scheme, but everything that comes with it. And I'd really, really, really like to see a lot more discipline. I think this is a game where the 49ers have to be disciplined. You got to cut down on the penalties. You can't have Charvarius Ward getting multiple penalties. You can't have, defensive hold here followed by a Dre Greenlaw personal foul. They have to button it up too. On top of just running the scheme that they're supposed to be running, they really have to keep it tight and disciplined and not let the referees extend drives for the Bengals. Also, I gotta say, my heart breaks for your kiddo there, because like as a new dad, I don't want to see no kids crying. So
yeah, it's so I sent you guys a video. We were at a Halloween house for the last 5 or 6 hours, all this scary stuff. She's 5 years old. And I told my wife, I told our friends that we were out with, I said, I guarantee you guys we're gonna have one of the kids sleeping in our bed tonight. While they knew it was animatronics and things like that, it was still the fact that they were just surrounded by it for hours tonight. Scary stuff, scary music, the smoke machines and all that stuff. And she said that she can't go to sleep. She's having bad dreams. So I was expecting this and anticipating it. So I told her she can stay down here with me until I'm finished the show. And I am not rushing this, by the way. I fully believe she'll fall asleep here and I'll take her back upstairs. She'll be fine. But yeah, no, I completely agree with you, right? That is the other key on the defense, right? It is the penalties have to come down. 100%. I agree with that as well. Don't make this game. Don't give it to them. There's going to be bad calls in every NFL game, except if you're the Eagles, obviously, right? There's gonna be bad calls in every single game, and guys, we have to expect that. But let's not make it 7 bad calls on the defense, extending drives that we should be getting off the field. We go out there and get a sack, and it's nullified by some nonsense, illegal contact down the field and things like that. Put the hands on the guys and know your zones. Know when you get beyond the 5-yard mark and you can't touch them anymore. I think the Niners really, really surprised people this week, and people are going to be like, "Oh, they're back." This is the week that we get to start tiptoeing back up to the top 2, top 3 teams of the NFL. We fell out of that after 2 bad losses in a row. And I'm saying bad. We didn't get blown out in any of these, but this is the week that we really get to rebound and start working our way back up inside that top 3 of the power rankings and all that in the NFL. And by the way, I don't know that we fell outside the top 3. I don't look at them, but I feel like we probably should have fallen out of the top 3 with the back-to-back losses.
Yeah. So it looks like the referee for 49ers Bengals, it's going to be Ron Torbert's crew. He is, you know who I'm talking about, right? Yeah. I feel like I see him a lot on the TV. So they're going to have to be very careful to not let him take over the game like they did with John Hussey, like they did last week with what's his face? I can't remember his name. I can't remember his name. One of the guys who throws the most flags in the NFL. They really have to tighten it up. That includes the offense too. So let's shift over to the offensive side of the ball. In your opinion, the 49ers win if the offense does what?
Have a game plan that is not dependent on Deebo Samuel. I know that sounds super simplified, right? But I am so tired of seeing on 49ers Twitter, on national media, oh, this offense just isn't the same without Deebo Samuel. We used him in a game as a straight decoy, 3 touches, 3 yards, and we still put up over 30 points, right? Get back to that. Maybe some 2 back sets, and you use Christian McCaffrey as the mismatch guy. Line him up outside and make a linebacker play out wide or something, or bring a safety down the box and take advantage of the space and opportunity. And the other thing is, this is going to sound crazy, scoring just outside of the red zone. I noticed in these Bengals games, I've watched 2 of them now since we've been on. I've noticed that they have this guy, number 29, Taylor Britt, I think is his name. Yeah, he's got a hyphenated last name. He's a second-year guy, 2022, second-round draft pick. This guy is really good in compacted areas of the field. Really good. He'll bat passes down. He'll get his hands on some of them. He'll come up with a pick if you let him. But when you get him in space, that dude is a liability. Take advantage of it. Don't march down the field. Get some long distance scoring drives. Some 22, 23, 24-yard touchdown receptions from Brandon Ayuk and Juwan Jennings, or whoever the wide receivers are they run out there. This guy can be routed up, but you got to take advantage of it. But when he gets down to the compacted areas of the field, this guy is really good. So he is a guy that I would focus on taking advantage of. Cam Taylor-Britt is his name, number 29 for them.
For me, I think it's going to be similar in that I think you want to keep Brock Purdy's pockets clean. The 49ers will win if they keep Brock Purdy's pocket clean. Keep him upright. Obviously, coming off of a concussion on Monday or whatever, you don't want to put him in harm's way. Most medical studies kind of conclude that you're more susceptible to a concussion the closer you are to the preceding one. So if they can keep him clean, that'll be a lot better for the team, and it'll allow Brock Purdy to work with a clear line of sight. I think part of what happens with, especially when I look back at some of the tape, that first pick, again, we talk about maybe was it concussion or whatever. The one thing I will say was Aaron Banks was pushed right into his lap. So you're talking about a 6'1" quarterback trying to throw a timing throw where he can't see the receiver breaking on the in route on the left-hand side because his 6'4" offensive lineman has been dumped right in his line of vision. And so maybe he doesn't see Jennings with that knot at the top, right? Maybe he doesn't see Jennings take a more outward approach because the DB had inside leverage on that route. If he doesn't see those things, maybe that's why the throw is so far off. So keeping a clean pocket, keeping a sight line, this has to be, as long as Brock Purdy is the 49ers starting quarterback, it has to be more of a New Orleans Saints type situation and what they would do with Drew Brees. And I don't know if maybe that would be something that the 49ers could look into in the offseason, even if it's just a mentorship type of thing, right? Like, hey, maybe you should talk to Drew to see how he handled looking over offensive linemen, because he had some of the biggest and some of the best in the business during his career. I just think that it's very, very important for the 49ers to make sure that Brock Purdy can see. If you're looking at routes that need to be timed, then he needs to see, hey, how's this looking off the line? Because that's going to inform him. He's got that mental clock in his head. I know JJ runs this fast. I know Brandon runs this fast, right? Where's the route taking them? How long is it going to take them? He knows the depth. He knows where they're going, right? If it's a dig route, he knows they're going to go 12 to 15 yards, whatever the case may be. I don't know specifically, but I know in a Shanahan offense, they probably have it down to the blade of grass, right, where they're cutting. Right. He has to time that up. The best way to do that is to keep him upright and people out of his damn way so that he can see what's going on. And the second interception in the Minnesota game was one where he was flushed out of the pocket and trying to make a play. So if you can keep him in a clean pocket, he's shown that he's very, very accurate coming out of a clean pocket. That's going to be key for the 49ers. Secondly, I think run blocking is important. Christian McCaffrey is going to have a big game. You can't just put all of it on Brock Purdy and expect him to, carry the load 100%. Just like we can't give Brock Purdy all the credit in the world because he has so many weapons, we also can't expect Brock Purdy to do 100% of the work either, right? If Christian McCaffrey has to, keep it going, has to get back on track in terms of what he can do rushing the ball, I think that maybe the oblique was still more of an issue than he lets on. He seems like the type of dude that's not going to be a complainer, right? When there were all those face mask penalties happening in a row, he was asked if he felt like people were targeting him, and he downplayed it. I think that it's very important for him to get further along from that injury and show that he's healthy, because a healthy Christian McCaffrey just makes the offense hum, makes it click. And thirdly, I'd like to see George Kittle continue to be involved in the passing game. I think it's been actually a very good thing over the last couple of weeks, particularly against Minnesota. I mean, 5 catches for 78 yards is a very good line for a tight end. And we're kind of accustomed in years past to seeing George Kittle being a bigger part of the offense. I think that that's something that they can definitely work with and continue to use Kyle Juszczyk in that secondary tight end role. I think that that has worked out well for him. Spread the load. It doesn't always have to be one guy. Ease Brock Purdy's load, and you'll be surprised at what he can do in terms of being that point guard, that distributor that's going to get you down the field.
Yeah, and when we do get into those red zone situations, and I'm sure there will be, right? Obviously, you can't just score from outside the red zone the entire game. There will be times where we have to do it. That's when we should start targeting George Kittle. Take advantage of that mismatch over there, his size, his physicality, his ability to go up there and make a catch through contact. That's what George Kittle excels at. The Niners wide receivers are going to be buttoned down on in those tight field situations. That's when we should see George Kittle really, really thrive. I wouldn't be surprised to see Kittle come away with a red zone touchdown or 2 in this game. Yep. I like what you were saying. Yeah.
Mike, this is a comment for you. Joshua Jeter asking, he hasn't tuned in for a while. Are Tony Wayne and the other guy, totally blanking on his name, still part of the show?
Yeah, Josh, man, long time no see. Thanks for tuning back in, man. Yeah, so we've started daily shows where Wayne and I are on there. You can feel free to go back and check them out, man. We have a lot of fun on those. You guys will see Tony. Tony works a lot, but when we can, we get him on the show. He's also over on the Patreon channel during game day. Mike is also over there on game days as well. I don't know if that's the other guy that you were talking about, or if you were talking about Nick. Nick does not do shows with Nothing But Niners anymore, but the rest of us are still here. So yeah, we're doing it up still, man. So thanks for checking us out again, man. Welcome back.
Excellent. Love to see it. Yeah, this particular show is a 49ers Hive show. Mike is kind enough to join us each and every week to go over games and things like that. But definitely, if you like it here, like, subscribe. We love having you here. And as always, follow Mike over on Nothing But Niners. Follow the Patreon, patreon.com/NBNiners, if I'm not mistaken. I did that from memory. I don't know if that. Hey, look at me. Thank you for watching tonight. Getting back to the preview, we saw another miss from Jake Moody last week.
Mm-hmm.
Are we starting to get worried that he has a little bit of the jitters, that he has a little bit of the shakes? I know after he missed that 40-yarder, pushed it right, he drilled a 55-yarder right down Broadway.
Yep.
Um,
And that
yeah,
that
I
right
mean,
there is why I'm not worried about him. I don't expect these kickers to be perfect. And I know people are talking about consecutive weeks missing and all that stuff. That's fine, right? That's cool. He is still a rookie, guys. We have to keep that in mind. He had a very rough start to his preseason. He bounced back from that. 5 games, perfect. And then he had a couple of misses in a couple of games. And so I think that he's right on par for what you would expect from a rookie. So I'm not really concerned with the young guy. We just got to be patient. He is not a seasoned vet by any stretch of the imagination, but we are back at home. This is the field that he knows, and I think he's going to be good.
yeah, I'm with you on that. Um, I think that it's important to remember the key thing. He is a rookie. And one of the things that I think goes often unnoticed is that college hashes are 40 feet apart. In the NFL, they're 18 feet 6 inches. That's a lot of leeway in terms of the geometry of a kick, right?
Yeah,
I think that there's something to be said for him trying to dial it in a little bit. I don't think any of his misses have been egregiously missed. It's like 6 inches to a foot outside. And those are all things that are within margin of error of like making adjustments and things like that. And I'll tell you this, I'd rather he get these out in the first half of the season so that way he's dialed in for the second half of the season. I
bingo.
know a lot of people talk about go and sign Robbie Gould, go and sign Robbie Gould. I guarantee you that Robbie Gould coming off of a damn couch is not going to be doing that much better to warrant getting rid of the 49ers actual first draft pick that they made. Right, they
Yeah.
took Jake Moody 99th overall.
Mm-hmm.
You're talking about a top 100 draft pick. You don't just give up on those guys easily. And it's interesting to me that the 49ers will tell you all the right things, right? That Kyle Shanahan tells you he's not worried about the missed kicks so much, but the fan base just refuses to kind of go along with that. Listen, the perfect example, Ian Sharp says Vikings kicker missed an extra point. Not only that, he also missed a field goal that would have
Missed the
sealed the
field goal
game.
too.
That gave the
Yeah.
49ers the opportunity to drive down the field or potentially drive down the field on that last drive where, unfortunately the second pick happened. But kickers miss, man. If you look at traditionally where kickers finish the season, the best kickers finished between 85 and 90% on their field goal kicks,
Yep.
and between 93 and 96% on their extra points. That's
Mm-hmm.
come down a little bit since they moved the extra point back, but generally holds true. And I've seen Justin Tucker miss field goals. I've seen Justin Tucker miss extra points. And I think it's easy to kind of harp on a kicker because in a vacuum, you want the kicker to do their job. I just don't want to get too overblown with. I mean, I've seen teams get rid of their kickers, right? The Rams just got rid of theirs.
Mm-hmm.
Maher or whatever it is, Brett Maher, they got
Yeah.
rid of him.
Yep.
I think it's premature. You got to have a little more patience. If it comes down to a field goal, I'm, obviously, as opposed to having complete confidence, I might be a little more, puckered, as it were, if he's kicking game-winning field goals. But I do think that with the weather being pretty clear for Levi's, the fact that he kicks there, I'm not that worried about it. Mike, how would you feel if it came down to Jake Moody's leg to win this game?
I'd be nervous. I'd be lying if I said I wasn't, right? But it's going to be what it is. I think Kyle will be disappointed that it's even coming down to that, and I think that's why Kyle said he's not worried. So I'm not worried about. I think that's what really stands out in Niner fans' mind, right? It's the game winner against Cleveland that he missed, and I think Niner fans are like, "Oh, Robbie Gould would have made it. This is why we need Robbie Gould back," right? It's just that situation. But the truth of the matter is, there were other opportunities for us to go out and win that game. Same goes for that Vikings game, right? There were other opportunities that were there. I'm more concerned with. This is going to sound like a shot, and it's not. I'm more concerned with red zone and goal line fumbles from Christian McCaffrey, and I think even that is something that will be worked out. I'm not overly concerned with that. If the game came down to a Jake Moody kick, I'd be nervous, but I think we'll be okay. I think we'll be okay, guys.
I think Randy Daytona hits the nail on the head too. Justin Tucker as a rookie wasn't Justin Tucker.
Right.
You got to give him time to adjust.
Absolutely.
The often overlooked aspect of this team we'll stick with special teams. Mitch Wishnowsky has been having a hell of a year. He's been pinning teams, and I feel like that this is a team, especially that if you can get them behind the sticks in poor field position early, is going to help the 49ers defense in a lot of ways. So, it's just funny because you don't see a ton of Mitch Wishnowsky punts because the offense has been moving the ball. But man, when he does punt the ball, it's been a thing of beauty. I mean, I do think that it's very important for the 49ers on special teams to win that field position battle. Mike, where do you think the value lies in Mitch Wishnowsky being able to, kind of pin the ball where he does? And do you think that that's something that's kind of been lost in the shuffle in terms of the offense versus the defense for this team?
Yeah, the special teams units have been coverage-wise much better. Coverage-wise, I've been pleasantly surprised and pleased with them. There was a point in time with this special teams where I was like, oh God, like the big returns, you know what I mean? Wishnowsky, shanking kicks and things like that. But that seems to have been worked out. And you see the guys getting down there, they get their heels on the goal line and they're waiting for the ball. We've seen a lot of really, really good play by the special teams punting unit, and that's a weapon. It's all of a sudden become a weapon where you can flip the field position with confidence. So I trust it. I do trust the special teams unit. I wasn't the biggest fan of the Schneider hire. I really wish we could do something and get like a special return guy, but that comes at a cost. It comes at a cost going out there to go out and hire a return specialist, bringing one of those guys in. The Niners end up trying to turn those guys into other kind of weapons later on. And I think that it comes down to Kyle and his mindset, right? We want to win the games with the offense and the defense. The special teams is just another phase of the game that we have to be decent at. And we want to rely on the other two phases of the game more than the third phase. So that's what it comes down to, guys. We can't panic. We'll be all right in the special teams unit if we handle business in the main two phases of the game. We're talking about a total of 8 or 9 plays a game. That's not really what we should be worried about as far as guys putting the foot on the ball.
The only thing that worries me about special teams is that I can't even remember the last time the last time the 49ers had anything more than a dog shit returner. I'm tired. I'm done with Ray McLeod, man. Can we get somebody else back there? Put Ronnie Bell back there. You at least got a physical guy that's going to do something with the ball. I think that's the one biggest weakness of the 49ers special teams is return game. Ray McLeod finally had a decent return and celebrated like he had just won a 100-meter dash or whatever. And it's just, there's a lot of times where, I get it. Kick goes in the end zone, let it go or whatever. Just don't do the thing where it seems like kick returners get bored and feel like they have something to prove, right? Like, oh, this is going to be the one that I'm going to bring out. And then you get tackled at 17. Like, I'm tired of seeing that. It seems like it happens quite often. It's very interesting that the 49ers haven't gone in a different direction. Do you think that can change in the next couple of weeks? I believe, I'm not 100% sure, but I believe that Danny Gray is still on the IR. If he comes off IR, do you think that could be somewhere where they use him and his speed?
They could. I'm not concerned. I don't know enough about Danny Gray's I don't want to say frailty. I don't think that's the right word at all. But he's got the speed, but Danny Gray could very well be another was it Richie James, right? Better than average speed, but could bounce off of one guy like someone hit him with a bazooka. You know what I mean? Like one guy barely touches Richie James and he goes flying. I'm not saying that is who Danny Gray is, but I just haven't seen enough to know that he's not that. But I would like the speed when he's back off of the IR. I would like to see, just some guys tipping their hat, or even if I don't see it on the field, I would like to hear reports that, hey, we saw Danny Gray back there doing some returns during on the side field during special team drills. I would just like to hear that the Niners are attempting to improve those kind of positions. We've heard people talk, even our special teams coordinator in Schneider, right? When he was here, they were like, oh, well, what guys are you looking to improve on and all that? He was like, well, The 53 has to get made, and then I have to see who's here. So I don't really get attached to individual players. I have to work with what I have, and then we see who's who. And it's a concerning comment when you feel like the guy can't even get a return guy. Like he doesn't have enough say to pick one guy out of 53 to be his return guy. You know what I mean? Like that just shows you how much this team is depending on everybody else in every other phase of the game, every other aspect of the game to be successful. It's just not the mindset of the Niners.
Is it safe to say that we're disappointed in the Ray McCloud free agent signing?
I wouldn't say disappointed. I guess it depends on the expectations of him. I didn't expect this guy to come in here and be some world beater, some great return guy. I know a lot of people like to gas him up and all that stuff, but I went back and looked at the Steelers numbers, and there were fumbles and bobbling the ball and stuff like that. And it was just like, all right. I never even considered him a boom or bust guy, right? I've seen guys with the fumbleitis and all that stuff as return men, but they will average, 16, 17 yards of return. He wasn't even that guy. So I don't know what people were expecting of him. He's kind of who I thought he was going to be, if I'm being honest with you guys. So
I got to be honest. I had a little bit more hype around Ray McCloud. I've seen him return a kick for a touchdown, and after a couple of years of the previous aforementioned Richie James, I was so ready to buy into the hype, right? Like I was so ready for it. I've just been disappointed personally. Mike, Randy Daytona brings up a very interesting stat that came up. Kyle's record in October is 11-16, the 1 month where he's under 500. What is it about October that just seems to get to Kyle so much that he seems to really struggle?
Yeah. This is the time of year when the Niners really hone their skills. So part of the part of the NFL season is evaluating who you are and who you're not, who you want versus who you want to be. Right? Early games in the NFL for all teams, not just Kyle, but for all teams, is figuring out what we do well, what we don't do well, and then applying it. A lot of teams really, really depend on that bye week to do full-blown evaluations. That's when the coaches really, really get busy. While it's a bye week for the physical players, it's not so much a bye week for the coaches. They might get an extra couple days off, but they're really, really crunching film and looking over everything. This is who we are. This is what we do well. It's not a coincidence that the Niners, after a 3-4 start, which plays into October, after a 3-5 start, which plays into October, flip a switch and make it an NFC Championship games. That's when they really do the reflecting and finding out who they are. And I think, honestly, that's kind of normal. That's when the good teams really rise to the top. It's like, all right, this is who we are. This is what we do. And, it's that self-evaluation. It becomes more about who you are versus preparing for other teams. Now we know what we do well. Now they have to find ways to beat us versus we think we can do this well, and this is how we're going to attack them. No, it switches the mentality. It's completely the opposite side once you get to November and December football. That's when the good teams say, all right, now you got to try to beat us, not us trying to beat you. And so I'm not mad at that. Kyle is a very, very analytical guy. He analyzes and overanalyzes probably. And this is when we flip the switch. So thank God for the 5-game head start. You know what I mean? We want to take a little hiccup here or there. We've had the here and there and back-to-back weeks. It's time to go ahead and get ready to turn the page here.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you. I think by this point in the season, you're talking October is week 6, 7, 8. You're talking about teams that have seen what your team is probably going to be for the rest of the year. It's very rare. And, the 49ers are one of the rare example of a team that can be under 500 through 6 or 7 weeks that will reel off and finish in first or second place in the conference. Right. I think that Kyle does a great job of putting out what he wants to put out at the beginning of the season. And then when teams counterpunch, October tends to be, the month that they do that. And then Kyle is able to analyze what other teams are doing, and then make the adjustments from there. And like you said, step on the gas, step on next, get ready for the home stretch, get ready for the playoffs. And when the 49ers have had major injuries, they've been towards the end of September leading into October. I think that plays a lot of it too. So I agree. I think that's a big part of it. Let's hope that Kyle can get a little bit closer to having a 500 record tomorrow. Real quick, I do want to answer Randy Daytona. Did Hightower have a hand in the Ray signing? No, Hightower was fired on February 5th or 6th, I believe. Ray was signed newly year, which was like mid-March.
Right.
So he was gone. But it is, and Valrama says it's Ray's last year, right? It is. He signed a 2-year deal, so this is his second year here. It's going to be interesting. Mike, before we jump into the offensive defensive MVPs, do you have anything else that could be kind of a, I don't want to say a key point, but something that you're really keeping an eye on for the game?
Wide receiver 2. That is, I can't stress this enough. We know about Kittle, we know about McCaffrey, we know about Ayuk, right? But in the absence of Debo, someone has to step up on the outside. Someone has to step up. I'm not looking for stats. I'm looking for, is this guy beating his guy? Is this guy running the routes? Is he creating an opportunity for himself? The Niners can't be
Ronnie Bell.
Right. This guy can't just be, oh, Debo's not here, so we're down to one wide receiver that we can target consistent. Like, I just don't want to see that. Because if you think about this Vikings game, they bracketed and took away Ayuk. Receivers kind of just disappeared after that. It was just, that's when it became the George Kittle show. And that's not enough for an entire half of football, So I am looking forward to just seeing who is going to create opportunities for themselves. Wide receiver 2 minus Debo.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. And like I insinuated, Ronnie Bell, man, the dude is physical. The dude runs hard. He was a Big Ten leader in receiving yards last year. He has the talent. I know that he has some of the ball security issues, but those are things that you can work on. To me, when I look out there, and you talked earlier about not doing the Debo offense all the time, the one guy that you could potentially at least do it more with is going to be Ronnie Bell. Much more physical runner than Ray McLeod. I just don't understand what you're doing with Ray out there. I don't see such a market improvement. And this just goes to the one thing that I think irritates me more about Kyle than any other, and that's leaving obviously talented guys on the bench for the sole reason that it's kind of like they're rookies and they're in your doghouse or whatever the case may be. I don't think that it's a very good move. This guy beat out other receivers on the team that were in this offense for a couple years, right? Like Willie Snead had to go back to the practice squad because of Ronnie Bell and his performance in the preseason. Other guys, I'm blanking on names. Chris Conley had to go, right? Chris Conley had a really good first preseason game, and he's been a guy that's kind of hung around Shanahan for a little bit. And you're telling me that this guy is just sitting there on the bench, and then you just have these other guys over the top of him after he's beaten other people out. Give him a shot. Obviously, what you're doing with Ray isn't working. So maybe at least if you're not going to do it on the special team side, let him run routes as wide receiver 3 or whatever.
And this goes back to what I said about the month of October, who we thought we were going to be versus what is actually working and what's not. So I do understand why Kyle thought Ray could do it. One, it's a wide receiver, but you can catch teams with the personnel formations. Forget, how effective he's going to be. We can put a wide receiver out there who might be able to take some of these handoffs. We saw Ray take a long handoff, the end around and run it in for a touchdown in previous games before, right? We've seen that over the years. So I'm not mad at Kyle for thinking, hey, we can do that with him in the absence of Debo. But then when you realize that teams don't respect it the same way, all right, now how do we make the adjustments, right? So Kyle's going to be looking at, well, this play is part of my playbook. Is it the speed of Debo? Yeah, sure. Is it the physicality of Debo? Aha, there we go. So you want to, maybe he thought, let's match speed for speed with Ray and Debo, who I think are similar as far as speed goes. But then it comes down to maybe I need someone more physical who can break a tackle or two once they get beyond the line of scrimmage or near the line of scrimmage. And then that's where they really become dangerous because of the downfield blocking from all the other wide receivers and tight ends and all, So I think that's where we start to see some of these adjustments, who we thought we were versus who we actually are. And I think Kyle's going to know, all right, Ray's not that guy that can do it consistently in the absence of Debo. So, this is when we start to make those adjustments. And I'm excited about this time of year because Kyle does that really, really well. He does it really well.
Yeah. You talk about wide receiver 2 being your last key. My last key really is running back 2. And I'm with the guys in the chat. Jordan Mason actually needs to get more carries. We saw no touches from him last week after being able to spell Christian McCaffrey in a pretty significant way against the Browns. He looked like he was running the ball not bad. I have not been impressed with Elijah Mitchell. I do think that he's injury prone. I don't think that he has the juice that he had before this latest injury. And it just makes me concerned, right? I do hope that after seeing him get that 1 carry for the negative yards and him coming off the field and kind of shaking his head and being immediately pulled, I do think that some of the luster has worn off of Elijah Mitchell. And I think that going forward, like you said, October, the guys that you thought you were going to get versus the guys that you have, I think that Jordan Mason going forward is going to be a bigger part of it. I think that he's going to be, more of that second running back. And Randy Daytona brings up a good point. Mason isn't blocking great. I haven't seen Elijah Mitchell throw a block either. You know what I mean? Like that it is what it is. Ian Sharp says Mitchell needs reps. He's not going to get them with Christian McCaffrey. You can't have a guy that is dependent on momentum, right? Jordan Mason looks like a guy that you can throw in there and he's going to get 3 yards in a cloud of dust. And he doesn't need to get built up over 5, 6, 7 carries. He doesn't need, I need to wear down this defense or whatever. And that's great that Mitchell can do that when we needed that type of runner. But his audition really with Christian McCaffrey was last season when he came back from the first MCL injury and then immediately injured his other MCL. So now you need a guy that can come and just really is effective at giving Christian McCaffrey a break every now and again. That's what you need.
Yeah, and truthfully speaking, there were a couple of games, and when I say a couple, I might really literally mean 2, right? Where Mitchell did look good in spelling Christian McCaffrey. I said he might be a better pure ball carrier than Christian McCaffrey. Like I said that last year.
You know that's bullshit now, right?
Oh yeah. It absolutely is, right? Like now, again, who we thought we were versus who we actually are, right? But Mason is not a guy that depends on multiple reps to be effective, and that's not a knock on Elijah Mitchell and his game. It's just that doesn't exist here with Christian McCaffrey. That opportunity for him is gone. We've seen some really good running backs in the NFL who depend on multiple touches to get started. Derrick Henry is one that will start games slow. They're ready for him, but he wears them down over time. And then all of a sudden, boom, he'll explode with an 89-yard touchdown run, right? Like, but we don't have that luxury.
By the way, 49ers legend Frank Gore was exactly like that. 2 yards, 2 yards, 3 yards, 3 yards, 4 yards, 18 yards, 20 yards.
Yep.
And he get the ball rolling. And that like you said, it works, but not in a Christian McCaffrey offense. Go ahead, Mike.
No, that's exactly my point. And Mason has shown us time and time again, I don't care if it's 2 carries, I don't care if it's 1 carry. I'm going to go in here and I'm going to give you something. Now, that's not to say that every single time Mason touches the ball, it's a positive gain or anything like that. But he comes in with that same vigor, and you can't tell if it's his first carry or if it's his 12th carry. You can't tell the difference. So that's why we should be making that switch sooner. But time and time again, I've been asked, in pre-games and all that, who do you think will get the touches not named Christian McCaffrey? And I've said it should be Mason, but the team just doesn't do it. Maybe this is the time where we turn that page and say, all right, Christian, you're out. Mason, go ahead. You're in there.
Absolutely. Ian Sharp says maybe we should have kept Jeff Wilson and traded Mitchell. Same, bro. Same. Wilson just came off of IR.
Yeah. Yep.
Same. And by the way, when both were healthy, Elijah Mitchell had far more production than Jeff Wilson did. Jeff Wilson living off that Texas route that he ran on that zero blitz. He's made so much money off
Cardinals game.
Exactly. Exactly. All right, Mike, we are about to jump into our offensive defensive players of the week and final score predictions. Everybody get those ready to put those in the chat. But before we do, I just get word that our boy Zach would like to pay these bills. So let's do that real quick.
Just want to take a second to thank today's sponsor, MyBookie. As a bettor, you demand perfection, and MyBookie delivers. NFL, college football, And a brand new cash out system gives you options to bet and win all season long. The first 2 legs of your parlay hit, cash out early and use the funds on another bet. Or you could let it ride for the chance of a bigger payday. Join the MyBookie family for a season filled with odds boosts, free bets, and super contests. To get started, all you got to do is super simple. Go to mybookie.ag right now and register for an account for free. That's right, it's free. And whenever it is you're ready to make your first deposit, just use promo code HIVE. It's right here on the screen, HIVE, to grab a welcome bonus on the house. That's our gift to you for being a part of the 49ers Hive family. That's promo code HIVE, HIVE, to claim your deposit bonus. And for a limited time, you also get a free chip to use in the MyBookie casino. You can bet anything, anytime, anywhere with MyBookie. Now let's get back to the show.
Can you believe that he just did that live right now? I can't.
That's crazy, man. Thanks, Zach, for
week.
thanks for making time for it.
Week.
That was great.
All right, Mike. We
Can
are
I-
getting. Yeah.
Can I
go
point
ahead.
something out also? I saw 2 or 3 times in this last game against the Vikings, George Kittle seemed to be confused about the routes that he was running. I don't know what that's related to. Now, I also noticed that it happened to be at the same time where 15 was on the field. No, 15 is, the other receiver not named Deebo Samuel. I don't know if there was a miscommunication between those guys. I remember in the fourth quarter when we were doing a very, very important drive where Kittle was lined up and he's literally turning around yelling at Brock Purdy and his arms are doing this. He's like literally saying, "What was the call? What am I doing? We're hurrying up and I don't know where I'm going." And then in the third quarter, right before we punted the ball, him and Jennings were in the same exact spot at the same exact time. I have no idea who the ball was actually intended for. Again, it's the team is pressing. They were pressing, and it's just not Niners brand of football. You talked about how the Niners have every route accounted for, not just yards, but the blade of grass that they're supposed to be running these routes, these intricate routes and all that. I want to see these guys settle down after back-to-back losses. If you're not settled right now, I don't know when you're going to do it. One more loss, I think they will find that calm, following the bye week. But let's not have to depend on that bye week to get there. I really want to see some adjustments made this week here with the offensive side of the ball. So, that Scott Broyles comment there, feeling calm and confident, Chris Everett, just forget the Chris Everett part, just feeling calm and confident. That's what we need to see from this 49ers offense in this game. Like, guys, one play at a time, know your assignment, and go out there and fucking execute. That's what we need to see.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. That being said, you talk about George Kittle. Who's going to be your offensive MVP this week?
Yeah, I've been thinking about it, man. I hate to say this, but it's kind of got to be Brandon Ayuk for us. I expect Christian McCaffrey to go out there and do CMC things. I expect him to have a bounce back week this week. But when Christian McCaffrey is doing his thing, the Niners are going to have to take advantage of the defense playing Christian McCaffrey, and there's not going to be anyone better to exploit that than you would like it to be George Kittle, probably, but I'm going to say Brandon Ayuk. He's got to go out there and really show, guys, you can depend on me. This is a contract season for him. He needs it. He wants it. And I think Kyle Shanahan does too.
Hey, that's a good one. I really like it. I'm going to go with Christian McCaffrey. I think it's very important that he gets back on a roll. He did have a touchdown last week, but it came in a game where he only averaged 3 yards a carry. The 49ers are going to need much more than that out of him if they're hoping to keep up with the Bengals. They have to understand that, Christian McCaffrey is an intricate part of the offense. Everybody's game planning for him. He's coming off an oblique injury. He's coming off of a bad couple of games. They need him to be 100% going forward. And I think that the time is right against the Bengals team that's going to be trying to take away the pass, going to be trying to pick on Brock Purdy, coming off the concussion, no Debo, no Trent. They're going to be coming after him. The Bengals typically tend to play the pass better than the run. I would expect Christian McCaffrey to go off in this game. Mike, you got a defensive MVP for me?
I sure do, guys. This is when the big bucks pay off. This game is going to be a Nick Bosa game if I've ever seen it. This guy looked pissed. He looked frustrated. He looked just anything negative that you could possibly use to describe him. Whatever the adjective is, I think an adjective is what describes it, right? That's who he was. At the podium, during games and all that, the body language is telling. And I think this is the get right week for Nick Bosa. I hate to say it because I know that's your thunder. This is kind of like, what you do here. But I think this is the week that Nick Bosa gets to be Nick Bosa. Let him read and react. And again, I expect this pass rush to get stronger as the game goes on. They're going to learn who they're up against, and it's going to be scary for his friend, his buddy, Joe Burrow out there this week.
Listen, I got it, man. I know I said last week was the last week, but I'm with you, Mike. I'm just going to throw it out there because I need the karma in the world. Nick Bosa, 3 sacks and a forced fumble. That's just, it has to be. I just can't let it go. It's one of those, I'm staying in the relationship too long, right? Nick Bosa already disappointing me. Nick Bosa already stepping out a few times, but I'm going to stick with it. Nick Bosa, 3 sacks and a forced fumble. However, honorable mention to All-Pro Fred Warner. I think that he's going to have a hell of a game too. I think that he's going to get back on track. He did miss a couple of tackles. He did, miss on a couple of coverage assignments, and then had that really bad thigh, like that Charlie horse that, I don't know if that affected him or what, but I think he bounces back. And shout outs to Fred Warner and his wife, Sydney, who announced on Instagram that they are having a baby. Congratulations to you guys. That's something amazing. Love to see it. And it kind of puts in context where he was like, I just tried to get up as fast as I could because I didn't want my wife to be terrified or whatever. I totally get that comment now. Congratulations to you guys. So Fred Warner with that. Mike, final score predictions.
All right, guys. Again, we talked about it earlier. This has got to be the get right game for the 49ers on both sides of the ball, excluding the third phase of the game here. I said I want to see the Niners get into those 20s, mid-20s at least. I'm going to go with the Niners 27, and I'm going to go with the Bengals 16. 27-16.
All right, everybody, if you don't know what we do score predictions every week. If you get it right, you get to pick a 49ers jersey of your choice. We have had one winner so far the entire time that we've been doing this, but we'd like to give away more. So go ahead and throw those into the comments here on YouTube. Throw them into the comments after the show goes live. We don't cut it off until first kickoff. So you have until then to get your score predictions in. If you win, you get a Niners jersey. That being said, I think the 49ers also get right. It's a get right game for them. And I think they get right in a big way. I think that this Bengals team has actually underperformed what everybody's expectations were, and they've won the last couple of weeks, but I'm still not impressed by them. I still think that the calf injury is bothering Joe Burrow. I don't think that, Joe Mixon is as effective as he was. I don't think that Zach Taylor is particularly calling good game plans. I think the 49ers really, really come home and get right the way that they need to. And I think the 49ers win 31-16.
I like it. By the way, that's just one more touchdown than what I said. So I'm with it. That's the score I had plus 1 touchdown. I'm with it.
Absolutely. Man. Absolutely.
I think that crowd is going to be infectious. That crowd is going to really, really give some energy. I don't know if you guys watch Dragon Ball Z, but we're sending the energy for the spirit bomb. Here it goes, baby. That's it. Put those hands up. Let's make some noise for our Niners. Let's get behind them, guys. And I think it's going to be a really, really good week. I think the fans are going to be pleasantly surprised with what they see this week.
I'm pumped for the game. I'm pumped for the game. I can't wait. I can't wait. It's good. It's going to be good for them to get back to Levi's. Nigel Crane asks, Higgins still banged up. He's going to play. He wasn't on the injury designation for this week, so he's definitely going to play. I don't know what kind of injury he has lingering or whatever, but he's going to be out there. All right, guys, before we get out of here, you know how we like to do before we leave. It is chat pack time. Mike.
Chat pack.
Yep, I got a question for you, my friend.
All right, let's do it, baby.
All right, here we go. Time freezes for everyone but you for 1 day. What do you do?
Wow. Time freezes. This is interesting. I mean, if no one else is moving or doing anything, I can't say what I want.
I know we all jump to like bank robberies and stuff, right?
No. I wouldn't do anything like that. But I think, man, what do I do? That's really, really interesting. And I got a whole day. I'm gonna go drive some car. I'm gonna go to a dealership and drive like my dream car. The road should be clear if time is frozen. I'm gonna drive my dream car. I will find out what the secret sauce is in McDonald's. So I'm kidding. I wish I had some like. This is a good question. I wish I had more time to think about it. Oh man, this is such a rare opportunity. I've never thought about this before. I would probably go spend some time with loved ones who I think are fading soon, just to go sit and look at them, hold some hands, knowing that I got them that full day. And I don't know. I would probably do some stuff for my family, like surprise my kids with some things. You know what I mean? Like I would go and get a couple of things and they just wake up and it's like, whoa, how did all this get here? It's kind of like the Christmas morning thing for kids, right? But on whatever random day that is, I'm family oriented, like true and through. So it would probably have something to do with like involving my family. When they woke up, it's like, boom, look at all this. You know, how did this all happen? Do some home repairs or something like that while everyone else is frozen. I don't know. Something along those lines.
All right, I got two. I got my sentimental answer and I have my conspiracy answer. Which would you like first?
Let's go with the sentimental answer first.
All right. I would like to freeze time just so that my daughter would stop growing so fast. We just had to pull out her 3 to 6 month clothes. My baby is barely 2 months old. Yeah. She's already growing so fast. And, you know, where she used to just fit like in the crook of my arm, now there's like overrun, right? Like she's grown almost 4 inches since she was born in terms of height. She's 50% heavier than she was when she was born. She's just getting bigger. I just, I don't want it to go that fast. And, people always say that, and it's crazy how true it turns out to be. So my sentimental answer would be just a day, my wife too, just a day where my family is the way that they are for an entire day. And I get to look at them and take that in for that entire day. So that's the sentimental answer. The conspiracy answer is my ass is going to the Pentagon and I'm seeing what the government's been hiding from everybody. I'm getting all the files, all the dirt. How did JFK die? Where are the aliens? You know what I'm saying? Like, is Hillary Clinton a lizard person? Right. All that stuff, all the bullshit. Right. I just want to, when the president gets into office, is there actually some like Gestapo organization that actually says, okay, well, you said this on the campaign trail. That ain't how this works. Let us tell you how you're going to be president. It'd be really interesting to get into the government secrets. So that kind of be where, what I would do at this point.
Now, how you getting there? Because you're pretty far away from the Pentagon. If everything is frozen, what are you jacking a plane, man? Like you only got 24 hours.
Well, I didn't specify when time would freeze. Hopefully I could. Hopefully I get a little bit of foresight, so that way I could, get to where I was going. I know I was thinking about that too when it was like, would I steal anything? I don't know. Are cameras frozen too? Like, is anybody going to notice that the money's missing? Like, what are we talking about here? But I would try to figure that stuff out. It'd be pretty fun.
Area 51 is a good one. Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
That's a really, really good one.
Oh, dang. Babies grow too fast. Going to be a grandpa in February. Just yesterday, I was carrying my baby girl around.
Congratulations, Damon.
Congratulations to you. That's your just rewards for being a good parent, is being able to spoil the grandkids and making your children's lives harder by spoiling the kids.
That's right. That's
a rite of passage. That's a rite of passage. Says Ian Sharp says X-Files, check the basement. That's funny. All right, guys. We're gonna get out of here. We both got family stuff to attend to, obviously. Mike, let the people know where they can find you. Thank you for joining us, by the way. But yeah, let them know where they can find you.
Yeah, no, not a problem at all, guys. YouTube, Nothing But Niners, and then the Patreon page, guys, right there at the bottom of the screen below Matt, patreon.com/NB9ERS. Tons and tons of bonus episodes over there, live during the games every week that, I'm not tied up. So this is going to be another one of those weeks. You guys can catch us over there. Although most of you guys should be able to see the game, it's still a very, very fun environment to be in. The chat is always live and active. You guys get to see the live, raw reactions to everything that's happening, every snap, every play. So yeah, that's where you can find us.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mike, for doing that. Thank you for joining me here tonight and, holding it down with me while Zach was busy with other things.
Yeah.
That being said, let's take it away. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. We had a good time with you tonight. We're going to have a big game tomorrow. I just feel it in my bones. I think it's going to be a big 49ers day, and we will be back with a review show probably tomorrow night and going over what is hopefully a 49ers victory. That being said, for Mike and myself, we love having you here. We thank you for joining us, and until next time, go Niners.